Take two. Hey guys, nice to join you on this call. The theme for today is going to be community and transformation. And I was thinking that we could start with a quick intro where you guys tell your story of your space, and I'll do the same. And then we can dive into some of the questions we've got lined up.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, so am I going first? Okay.
Yeah,
so my name is Anton Chernikov, and I am sitting here in House of Transformation London. And the story of this space really began with a chance meeting at a members club that's kind of focused on social impact, called The Conduit. And I was waiting for my meeting and overheard this conversation happening next to me, where there was this guy that said, "I'm a farmer, I'm also an investor, and I'm also a tech entrepreneur," all in the same sentence. And then I have this portfolio of projects that I invested in over the last 10 years. And then I've never heard that before. Farming, tech, and real estate all together. So I had to take his business card and his contact and follow up. And so I did. And we quickly became friends, and we spoke a lot about circular economy and this idea of merging the networks and resources of the city and the countryside. What is this opportunity and this partnership that exists between the rural and the urban? And how can we develop that and explore that? Because to create a truly regenerative, sustainable economy, we need both the city and the countryside to be working together. And so out of that kind of core principle, we started Circular UK. And our vision was to create projects and open spaces both in the city and in the rural areas outside of London. And so when lockdown happened, the company that used to be in this office moved out. And we lived directly downstairs. Literally, you just pop outside, down the steps, and I'm home. And it was too good an opportunity to pass up. So we agreed a 5-year lease with the landlord starting from September last year, with a 7-month rent-free period because of COVID and lockdown. And we renovated it. And it was a super fun process because we built it in 3D, and we had everything effectively CNC'd in a factory with plywood. And then all these kind of 1,000 sheets of plywood arrived. And then with a group of 10 of us, we bashed them into boxes and then bolted the boxes together to create a house, a stage, 2 staircases, a kitchen island, lots of shelving, and lots of seating and sofa areas, and even a king-size bed in the loft upstairs. And so this was great fun. And the idea of the space very much is to have a hybrid model where during working hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, we rent it out to companies for boardroom meetings, for kind of workshops and creative events that they want to do outside of the office. And then on evenings and weekends, we experiment with transformational events and embodied events in particular. So kind of deep dialogue dinners, ecstatic dance, sound healing, yoga meditation, as well as the occasional kind of experiential party and kind of creative art jam, whatever that is in the end. And yeah, it's super fun to call this an extension of our home. And obviously we haven't been able to do much because we opened during lockdown, but we kind of anticipated that. But what we've been able to do is during this time, test a few event formats, polish off the space. I've kind of filled it with lots of paintings and murals like we have behind me, and over 40 plants, which is pretty cool, that I found from I contacted this wholesaler that buys the plants directly from Holland. And yeah, it's been super fun to launch the space. We've also put out a crowdfund where we're at over £3,500 now, that will help us that has potential to get over 75% match funding from the Mayor of London. And this will give us this kind of launch into a post-lockdown world that will enable us to do loads and loads of events, as well as weekend retreats, and start really building this community and this movement of kind of transformation and regeneration that so many of us are yearning for right now. And yeah, it's kind of the beginning of this adventure. Personally, I work in real estate, And I see such an opportunity to create many, many of these spaces, not just in cities, but also taking over farms and helping them shift to a regenerative, multidimensional business model. So yeah, maybe I mentioned that a little bit later. But at the core of what we stand for, as it says on the wall there, our purpose is reimagining space to enhance well-being, showcase the arts, unleash circularity, and ignite lasting change. And I think it's a very exciting moment to be creating a physical space, because I think people are yearning for that in-person connection more than ever. And yeah, it's going to be really fun when things open up again in the kind of late spring, early summer. And yeah, I'm excited for that moment. So that's a little introduction to our space.
Cool. Yeah, and I want to get into this. You mentioned like connecting rural and urban areas, and what we do is a lot about connecting things, or like getting things together, or like the synthesis of two things. And what we started off with was a transition movement. That we were both part of a worldwide transition movement, like new kind of models for economy, new like ways of dealing with money, new ways of dealing with energy, so like sustainability, all those things. And what we both knew from the beginning was that like the inner transition, like the inner transformation basically has to be like the centerpiece of this whole thing. Because we can change the system, we can change all our systems that we live in, but eventually, like the core of everything we do in this world is human beings. And if we don't change in the inside of ourselves, if we don't change what we are and who we are, then everything we do on the outside is for nothing, basically. Even though it's great things that are happening, but in the end, the factor human is always like the key factor in everything we do. So we thought of instead of just having a transition movement, we want to create a transformation movement, which focuses on the core of human existence, basically. And that's why we built the House of Transformation here in Zurich. And it's also an art space. We had a lot of artists that came here over like last year, all those artists, they brought their art in here. And to us, art is not just an expression of yourself, but it's also sort of a bridge that connects to other people. Like through art, I can connect probably more easily to other people around me, because it's something that shows something that's something that's coming from deep inside of me, and that I can express through art, and I can connect to other people. So that's why it's an art space as well. And we have workshops that care for inner human transformation, for the inner transformation, basically. And we mix it up with art. So we have like breathwork workshops or yoga workshops, and then we mix it with art, with performances, or with like lighting everywhere here in the house, and with storytelling, those things. So this is what really makes the events here at House of Transformation in Zurich pretty special, I think. And yeah, now with Corona, we couldn't really do all those events. We prototyped a lot of those events through the year, and we're really ready to go. But we're still kind of waiting to really open up those events for the broader public.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about your space and because what's different from ours is that you are a co-living house as well as an event space.
I'm Ryan Oberholzer, and I'm also here a project leader of the House of Transformation. And for me, it's really important to tell something about my own story to come to the point why we are like a co-living house here. So I used to work as a lawyer in environmental law in Zurich. And I went to the office every day. I was like sitting in front of the computer every day in the office, and I had like a great team, a great job. But for me, it was like always a problem to have like this, my public life, my work life, and then to have my private life like separated. I felt like separated inside myself, like to have two different roles, one in work and one in private life. And so a big desire inside myself was like to bring those two things together, like to not be or play two different roles in two different lives, but to bring them together and to live with people with who I work with too. So to bring these two things together. And so our purpose was also, our drive was also to create a community which works for the same project. And this is how we live and work together here in the HOT in Zurich, that each person that lives here is also part of the project and works for it and carries like the whole vision and the purpose of this project.
Awesome. Yeah, nice. I also had quite a few experiences with co-living. I helped open a house in Stockholm, initially called Tech Farm, that then became K9 Co-living. The core of the community was this idea of we grow together, and personal development and kind of conscious co-living was central to the story that we told, and also the framework that we created when people moved in. And we had a beautiful Zen room, but we also have this kind of multifunctional living room that could be everything. It could be a theater, it could be a stage, it could be a dance floor, it could be a movie night, it could be an office and a co-work space. And in many ways, for me, the essence of how those common areas flowed and adapted at K9 was a big inspiration for House of Transformation. And I think that there's a huge power in living together. Sharing kitchens, bumping into someone every day. My partner Morgan talks about it a lot. She even wrote a book about it. And I think that's super important, but it's often hard to find, because it's hard enough finding a house just for yourself that is affordable and has character, maybe for a few friends, but finding a house that, or a space, especially in London, where you could have 10, 20 people living under one roof, sharing kitchens and having a big event space, it's almost impossible, you know, and because it's so competitive and expensive for it to actually work. And so kind of what we're trying to do is kind of recapture the magic of co-living, but focus instead on that common space, on that common event space that can change and flow, where the learning can happen, where the dancing can happen, where the socialization can happen. And then hopefully people move in or live not too far away, and they can just cycle by. And it's not such a mission for people to come and really get to know each other. And as we build that strong sense of community, then we really feel the sense of tribe, then we can look further out, where we can build from the ground up, where we can participate in regenerative farming, where we can plant trees, build art forests, create a little oasis in the countryside, where the price of housing, the price of space is 1,000 times less than the big city. We still need the city in order to create that magnet, to draw people in, to be at the center of things. But at the same time, once we find our tribe, I think the ability, you're so limited in the city in terms of price and expense and space. You have to be very creative with what you have. In the countryside, your imagination can really go wild. And I think that's quite a wonderful balance and mix. But it's true that there's something special when people live together. What I'm trying to achieve with House of Transformation is that you give the feeling of neighborhood is like your co-living house. And one of the things that I initiated in the last month and a half is HFest, which is this idea of a festival, an urban festival that we can run on an ongoing basis. It will start in the space, and then we've got a partner space as well called the Halley that focuses on entrepreneurship and music. and they have a great event venue too, and a little cafe, and then maybe expand to the whole neighborhood. So we are in Haggerston, and Haggerston is within the borough of Hackney, so you can see the H kind of multiplying, and the ability to create the feeling of co-living within your neighborhood is something that I would love to make happen, and then people can participate in that transformation of place, so you really know your neighbors, and that you've danced with your neighbors, and that you've broken bread and cooked food with your neighbors, and hopefully in doing that, people start getting introduced to a different way of communicating and a different way of tuning into their bodies and going through that inner journey for themselves. And one of the questions we have is, let's have a quick look. What does community mean in 2021? For me, I think the type of community I'm interested in is the one that isn't just based on interest, isn't just based on kind of superficial similarities or common interests, but is based on an inquiry about the state of the world and the exploration of how it can be improved, or how we can address some of the bigger challenges that we face. And I think that what I find really interesting is the role that dance in particular and music have to play in creating this deeper sense of connection and opening people up. Cacao ceremonies, I think, a wonderful ritual. I also think that being able to run lots of kind of consistent dinners that will help create this sense of trust and familiarity within the group, that will then make people go, you know what, let's build a camp at a festival, or let's do a project here, let's spend an entire weekend and work on ourselves and co-create unconference style. And but I do think that it can be a bit much for people initially because we have such busy lives. So, that dance or that dinner or that kind of meditation or sound healing can be a little hook, and then people will get more engaged, and before you know it, then it's like, my dreams really align with your dreams, and maybe we could do this together, and stuff like that could happen. But that's my hope, at least, is that by running consistent events that aren't too complicated, that just get people to open up, to engage with their senses, and to connect not just through conversation, analysis, and networking, but through their senses and their emotions, that will then lead to hopefully deeper friendship and this feeling of communitas and momentum to build together. And so, but it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to be a fun year to see what people really are called to this place, and the projects that we're initiating. So I think the role of art and music and dance is really important, and having a space that can become a dance floor is so valuable. I kind of say that every House of Transformation needs to have like a little storage house where you can dump everything, the chairs, the tables, whatever, to then clear the space for a big circle, for a dance, for a yoga, for a sound healing. And the tables need to have legs that you can take away, or fold, so that you can move the tables in, so that you could then completely open up the space. But equally, you don't just want an empty space all the time. You also need a desk to sit on, or somewhere to put the food on the table, and so on. So that's my little reflection on that question. How about you guys?
What I really love about community is, to me, it's the treasure that lies within community, but also like difficulty, like quite a thing, actually. So it's all those triggers, especially when we work and live together with people. I get constant triggers, meaning I get aggressive, I get disappointed, I get sad, I get all those like emotions that get triggered. And eventually, to me, those triggers are not something that are in the way of like a happy and free living, but on contrary, they're like my way if I take those triggers as opportunities, basically. And yeah, and for my self-development, for myself, you could even call it healing, like healing of traumas, healing of yeah, things that aren't really still like part of my life, that origin my childhood somehow. And yeah, it's a lot about those things that to me make community very special. And particularly when we work and live together with people, like those triggers come like every hour, basically, like daily. And it's always an opportunity that I can, yeah, really catch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that one problem why sooner or later it comes to problems between humans or between groups is because people don't want to get involved with the others, don't really want to involve themselves with other people. Like we have we humans, we used to have like only a little circle of people who we really want to get involved, and the others are like, yeah, more or less a little bit, but not too much. And this creates like, or it comes to a point where then people separate normally because of that, what you said. Yeah, we have other visions, or we are not so much in alignment, or you have other opinions about important things. And I think that, yeah, if we want to go like further, we have to get involved with others, like really, really involved. And involvement, I don't know, is this the right word maybe for that? You understand what I mean? Yeah. Involve. Yeah, and so I think the most important thing is like the commitment to involve with others, but also to involve with yourself, basically.
I think there's something powerful about designing an onboarding that also is a personal development journey, that is a rite of passage almost into a way of life. And I think that initially, I think it's really important to create a beautiful space that embodies the values, that kind of creates the atmosphere. And I think in time, the ability to actually design learning journeys and to create frameworks that become then almost a kind of initiation into the group. You know, so like the old frat and sorority houses, but instead of getting people to go naked around town and drink beer or whatever stupid things there are, it's about beginning or continuing a process of inner work. And I think there are so many great tools, both mental and embodied, that you can bring into everyday life that will help you become more resilient, that will help you to improve your intuition and be a better leader of yourself and within a group. And I think that the role of self-leadership within community is really important. And also these types of like mini courses or learning journeys or whatever you want to call them also create a fantastic environment for people to truly get to know each other and different dimensions of who we are. Because yeah, we're different people at home, we're different people who kind of work in some ways, we kind of have different sides to our personalities, and it takes time to really to know all of them, and often having the courage to do something a bit daring, like, yes, we're going to go on a 2-day immersive leadership journey together, which is quite an intense thing with housemates or flatmates or neighbors. And I hope that we get the chance to do that here. But it's also something that I'm sensitive that you don't want to force onto people, because some people don't like that way of getting to know people. It's too much pressure. You have to kind of perform and present and know your purpose and go into your inner child and vulnerability. And it can become a bit much. And I know there's learning communities and leadership communities that are like full on boom, boom, boom. And it can just like, okay, time out, right? Relax. But I also a part of me that really loves that intensity as well. And the opportunity that it will create for people to really almost take on a coaching relationship with each other and dive more into the deeper psychologies that we have. So it's always this kind of like balance of how much do you want to push that and how much do you just want to naturally let it happen organically? Because it could be that you just decide, let's go to a festival together and build a camp. And then we create sculptures and we transport it. And just through doing that, we'll then sit around a fire and then this conversation will happen without needing to like frame it or stage it or facilitate it or program it. So yeah, I'm still a little bit like torn between whether you want to just let it happen naturally or whether you want to really like from beginning, right? We're going into this deep dive of personal development, day one, let's go. Or you keep it a little loose and let people lean in at their own time. What do you guys think? What's been your experience?
Both, really. A good mix. When we do here at HOT Zurich, we do have we do those things in a structured way. I mean, we have we call it Reconnect, for example, where we all get together in a circle and we really dive deep into what's really happening on a relationship level, for example, not just on the work level. And we do this regularly, so it's kind of structured, plan how we do it, like when we do it, and at the same time there needs to be space for spontaneity, and there needs to be space to always be open to develop those tools we apply, those tools we use, those methods we use. So there needs to be a lot of space for open-minded space to let things happen as well. So we love this kind of playing with structure and chaos at the same time. I think this is really having the balance there is really a way to go. Yeah. To me, it feels, I love chaos. I love going into the unknown, and I love structured and get things done and having timelines for what I do. So this is the mix of this. It's what I really, really like.
Yeah, I like this idea of a hot school, of all these kind of life level lessons and tools and frameworks. And the actual hot school is just a very flexible, sharing circle effectively, that's combined with kind of a buddy mentoring coaching program. And people get to know each other by being each other's coaches. But then you also have that group time where you can really meet and reflect on your relationships, but also to look back on your calendar and how you spent your time. I think there was one leadership program I did called I Discover. And one of the things I took away was they, first of all, said, everyone go around, write down the values that you think represents you. And then everyone wrote caring, and thoughtful, and conscious, and blah, 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 blah. And then he said, okay, now look at your calendar over the last 2-3 months. What did you actually spend your most time on? Oh, work meetings, travel, trips. It's things you spend your time on are the things you actually value. So those are your values based on your actions and the way you spend your time. So you could say, yeah, no, I really value my friendships, but how much time did you spend with your friends? Or did you spend it all with your girlfriend and your work colleagues? And all of these things, I think, can be very powerful to reflect on how you use your time. And then to do the simple coaching thing of setting your goals and then having a community or at least 1 or 2 people hold you accountable to those goals, I think is super, super valuable. And then off the back of that, then there's always this kind of stardust that comes from, okay, what are the epic things that we just always wanted to create, and can we help each other create that? Whether it be a fun event, whether it be an adventure somewhere. And I think those are really powerful as well, because suddenly you're not just living within the day-to-day, you're also able to kind of like dream together as well. And I think that the ability of co-producing events with themes and storylines, going on adventures and hikes, experiencing real nature together, is such a powerful way to create that bond that will last. And yeah, I've also, and I know that some people, like Morgan, would say that those bonds are created through those little moments around the table sharing pancakes, and it's true. But I've always felt that in order to really connect with someone on a really deeper level, we need to build some stuff together. We need to at least go to that next place of creation. But I also know that's just kind of a little bit me, and it's not everyone that builds relationships in that way. So yeah, that's it. But it's that commitment to that reflection and commitment to that time is super important. This kind of practice of, you know, collective observation and goal setting, and I think there's a reason it works. There's a reason people get paid a lot of money to instill these practices for top athletes and top executives. And if we can bring some of that into our lives, it's going to have a lot of benefits. So yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Do we want to, why don't you guys, just to end, if someone was to create their own house of transformation in their kind of neighborhood or in their country, what advice would you give them?
Well, we put a lot of effort, and we still are putting a lot of effort in community building. So in the end, it's all about humans and relationships. I mean, I love projects, I love big visions, I love everything we do, I love working hard, I love all those things. But in the end, what really matters is people and relationships. So really put your focus on those things. Community building, caring for each other, and really dive deep into those like triggers I mentioned, like those that emerge in relationships, new relationships and old relationships. Really, yeah, dive deep into the psychology of human existence, basically. Mm. And then when this is done, and it's never like done, you know, entirely, but always for step by step, then everything around, like all those projects, all those visions, they will come like naturally. And that's what I love about it. If like the relationships, if this is set, you know, everything on the human, on the personal level, basically, then all the visions, all the projects, they will come naturally or unfold naturally. Yeah.
How about you, Ryan? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think to be really clear about what's important for you and to communicate it, to say it to these people that are coming to put their time also in the project. So to be really clear about this and to communicate clearly what you want. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I definitely would agree. The human side, the relationships, the communication is fundamental. But sometimes you don't necessarily have the community at the beginning. And I think the space can help you find the community. And so one of the advice I would give is think about a way to prototype your vision in the kind of simplest and most affordable way possible. Maybe you could lease an empty shop, or maybe you could find a vacant office space like we did. But the act of creating a space where ritual can take place, where people could dance but have dinner, and where lots of things can kind of flex and merge, where the space itself can transform, can be a great way to start. And then people will come into collaboration and co-creation with you around what's next. Now, I think that there's so many experiments you can run without needing to have, millions of pounds or hundreds of thousands of pounds of investment or funding, and give it a go. I think that people are yearning out for these types of events and experiences and conversations, and so there will definitely be a demand. So find a small space somewhere and just try it out, and it will bring you so much joy and growth, and who knows what will emerge from it. And I think that's the most exciting part, is that you can begin it, but then it will take on a life of its own based on the people that engage with it and come to your events. And yeah, it's a really fun and rewarding process. So.
Cool.
And I have another one. What I think is really important is to show yourself, like to show yourself in your vulnerability and in your the points which you don't want to show anybody. I think this is really important. Also the bad and the ugly sides of yourselves.
For sure. Well, thank you for a wonderful conversation. I'm going to stop recording.